It's always my cue. Okay. All right. I will bring the Rapid City Area School District Special Board meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Kate Thomas,
Here.
Gabe Doney is absent with notice. Jim Hansen is absent with notice. Deb Baker. Here. Clay Colomb,
Here.
Amy Plisky,
Here.
and Troy Carr.
Here.
Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I need an approval of the agenda.
I make motion.
Deb and Troy. Roll call.
Kate,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Clay,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Troy.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
All right, moving on to number 4. Facilities discussion.
All right,
Take it
thank you,
away.
President Thomas. Shirley, have you enabled screen sharing? Okay, thank you. All right. So tonight, we are here with members of the Facilities Committee to just talk about some updates and some things for the board to think about in the future. This slide just quickly shows everyone who attended our Facilities Committee meetings this school year. Bishop Carr, Clay, and Jim were the board members attending. And so as we look to what we want to cover in the next hour, Kumar is going to provide an update on the South Middle School project for you, as well as share some pictures. He's also going to talk about the Fifth Street property. That's the property on the west side of Fifth Street that we own that we may want to consider putting on the market, given the market right now. We wanted to share the facility committee's recommendations regarding a CTE building. Kumar would also like to talk to the board about a deferred maintenance plan moving forward so that we've got a real concrete plan. And then finally, we wanted to talk about just the long range facilities plan and where things are at and some considerations and next steps. So with that, I will turn it over to Kumar.
Thank you, Dr. Simon. We started this project about a month and a half ago. We started digging and we have materials that we have procured. We are we're updating things on shop drawings and we're approving shop drawings. We're ordering materials. Some have showed up on the site and some are in the process of getting. And we also promised you that we will work on value engineering on that site, on that project. The bids came in at 61.4 and we said we will come close to 1.5. We'll do our best to get that to you. So we are working on that and we have a change order coming to you for the next board meeting for a negative sum of $800 and some odd thousand. So we have reached that goal of close to 1 million at this point, but we will bring another change order to you to get close to that dollar amount. So what that is for us is that dollar amount will give us the contingency we need, potentially we may need for this project. As Mother Nature has blessed us with all the moisture, I will share some pictures with you. The findings underground, below ground, 4 foot below, and the moisture is just not playing well. So I will share some of those pictures with you, but we're making progress on the value engineering as promised. And then we also reduced the phase 2 of the construction, which is, talk about that in the slides here, but that is reduced that time down to September. So it was scheduled for October, which that phase 2 part of it is the existing building's footprint. So after the kids leave the building, we have to abate asbestos in that existing building and then demo the building and then rebuild everything in that same site, build the parking lot, build the geothermal wells, all those things. We have rearranged some things in the site, moved the geothermal wells to be able to save some time, which means it saves general conditions time too, the superintendent's time at the site, and it saves about $30,000. So all that is reflected in the change order that is coming in the next board meeting for you. And because of the market the way it is, because the inflation and the prices that are jumping every day at this point, just one example, aluminum has gone up about 15 to 20% in price since we bid the job. So granted, this project is a hard bid project. There's no negotiation. The contractor signed the contract to agree to build the building for that price. None of that affects us, but there are delays happening across the board because of some of those things. There are subcontractors going out of business because of the price increases that they cannot honor the price that they gave. So we had a discussion, Dr. Simon and I and Coy and the facilities committee about taking a builder's risk insurance. We typically don't take builder's risk insurance, but given what's going on in the market, we decided to go that route. We worked with two companies, the two that responded to us amongst everybody that we reached out. One company that we work with here locally that has the current insurance policies for the district, and another company from Wyoming. They were very close on the pricing, and that is something that I'll bring it to you next. And that is about $4,000 or $103,000. It's pretty close to that $100,000 price range, but that insures our $61.4 million investment or the builder's risk for that portion of that building. This will cover anything and everything that is not covered by a general contractor's insurance. So every general contractor, every subcontractor, they all have their insurance, they all have their limits, their liabilities. But if a material is stored at site, tornado comes through, or somebody vandalizes, or something disappears. I mean, copper the way it is. I mean, it's just we have secure gates on the property. You just never know what could happen. So for that purpose, that's the recommendation that we have and the facilities committee had. So we proceeded with that, and we'll bring that to the full board also for that particular insurance. With that, if you don't have any questions on things that I talked about so far, I'll show you some pictures and renderings of what the school would look like in the future.
I have a question about, so what is that insurance going to cover that the other insurance doesn't cover? Such things as, I would imagine theft would be on the normal contractors, but just tell me what the difference is.
Yeah, the theft certainly up to a limit. So those are things that we are fine tuning at this point, we have the general contractor's liability insurance, and we have subcontractors insurance, but then they can only cover up to a certain limit.
Okay.
And then let's say if hail comes through, the product is stored at site, or a fire starts at the site and we have some damages to the product, they will cover it up to so much.
Okay.
And this builder's risk insurance bridges the gap until we take occupancy. So after the building is built and we take occupancy, then our full insurance kicks in.
Okay.
Until that time, a welding is happening and something starts on fire.
Right.
So it's one of those things. If it is a accident, the liability is on the contractor, of course. But if it's not covered for whatever reason, then this covers as an umbrella on top of everything. So then we are insured no matter what for that $61.4 million over the course of 2 years.
Why wasn't it bid in the original? Why wasn't it included in the original bid, their building risk insurance?
So over the past, the process that has been followed by the district is a design, bid, build, process, which is you design it and then put it out on the street for contractors to bid it, and they give you a hard bid, and that's the end of the world, right? You don't have any other risk. We had water come into our property through storm sewer. We had materials gone up in price, which it was never the case before. So we never spent the extra hundreds of thousands of dollars on procuring insurance. We spent that money towards the building. So it's just a cost savings measures in the past. And the market wasn't like this. Even when we built Central High School, there was 138 square foot when we built that school. And we built, I mean, that building is 500,000 square foot. So it was, this risk level wasn't there before. So that's why this prompted us to go in that route, just to make sure we're covered on all different directions. Because we were called and said, hey, the aluminum went up by this much, so we cannot honor the value engineering price that we gave you 2 weeks ago. And we were like, no, well, this is the price we agreed to 2 weeks ago, and we are moving forward this project. And so there's a lot of different reasons that prompted us to go that route to secure our investment. Any other questions? With that, Dr. Simon, so that slide right there is the site plan of that site. I'm sure you may have seen this at the ribbon cutting or before. That dark footprint, dark gray footprint is the new building's footprint. And the existing building is on the southern side along Indiana. And you can see where that second parking lot is going to be built, where that existing building is. And then the football field is getting moved to the further east part of the site. And then the community center stays as is. We're not disturbing the community center, but the new building is going to be built at the same level as the community center. Bus pickup and drop off happens on the west side. It's a one-way in and out. And the staff parking lot is on the north side. Northwest corner. And you see another road that comes, if I may, maybe I should just stand up and show you this. This one right here, that is access to our crawl space or a basement underneath the entire building. So what we have that is unique in this building that we don't have in any other building in the district, that is all the mechanical and electrical systems are underneath, are under the building. In the foundation, in the basement itself. We have concrete over those units, but then everything else is covered with vapor barrier and gravel. What that does for us is it gives us the flexibility and fluidity that we need for the schools moving forward. As programs change, as things evolve, in the past way of putting things underground or under concrete is just not a good maintenance friendly structure by itself. So by lifting this building up, one, we're taking it from the lower level and raising it up by 4 foot, again, fighting with water issues that are happening at that site. And then we're going deep on structural foundations anyway. So by adding the structural level, we're not paying $430 that we're paying for per square foot cost for mechanical rooms and electrical rooms on main floors. It's all on the basement at about a 90 or less dollar per square foot. So it's 450 versus 90. Right? And then we have ice storage tanks underneath it. Plus our maintenance team can go service it anytime during normal business hours. They can take the trucks under. And so it's a better maintenance friendly building from that standpoint, and also operationally friendly building from that standpoint, and less cost rather than building it on the first or second level. And the next picture, this is the rendering of the school from the front. So to the leftmost is the community center, and then the new building, you can see the double brick, the gray and the brick color, clay color, and that is the wrestling room, locker room, and then the one after is the gymnasium, and the main entrance is in the middle, and the 2 classroom wings further to the north. That's kind of what it'll look like from a bird's eye view standpoint from the front. Thank you, Dr. Simon. Next picture is from the back. That fenced in area is the basketball court. After the kids finish the lunch, they can come out and play for 10 minutes, 15 minutes under supervision, and then go back to the building. And the bus pickup and drop off happens on the west side of the school there. And the southernmost is the staff parking lot, and the loading dock access is that concrete that is a little bit to the west of that parking lot entrance. But we don't have a lot of details accurate on this because I didn't want to pay for a full detailed rendering. We just wanted the quick rendering so we could show you what it looks like and not having to pay for an architect or a team to put all the details in it. So if you have any questions, you see it in plans, it doesn't look like here, let me know, please.
Kumar,
Yes, sir.
just for my curiosity, so this is, yes, this basketball court is the only one. So all the ones that are currently, I don't know how many there are, 4, 5, 6 basketball courts that they have now, those are all going away.
Correct. So none of, I shouldn't say none, but not a lot of schools have that program during the daytime, right? You know, we have this basketball court inside the gymnasium, so that's where the kids will practice and play for school use. And when you see it for our current school use, not our kids go and play and take advantage of those basketball courts. So what we did was figured out the programming and figured out the need and gave them what they really need versus, you know, what the numbers. Because, you know, we have acres and acres of things that we need to maintain. Rather, just give them what they need. And this is what it came out to for the needs. And the rest they will use the gymnasium. And we have the community center. So we have 2 gymnasiums at that site that suffice the court needs.
Thank you.
Yep. Yes, sir. That's why I said, warned you, details. We didn't pay for details. So, and I caught that myself too. And it's like every time, you know, I ask him, Kathy can attest to it. How come the flag's not shown here? How come this is not? So, and I said, you know what? You gave me the details that I really need so I can give a visual to you guys. That's enough at this point. Their charge is $220 an hour. I'm like, nope, not needed. Thank you.
Although for $220 an hour, you would think it would get it right.
But this is free.
Oh, gotcha.
That's why I said we didn't
Okay.
pay for anything.
Okay.
So now if you think about it, that's
Yeah.
negative 220 for us.
Yeah.
Hey, I'll take that.
Okay.
All right. So this is a view of the gymnasium. There are practice courts and you can see the bleacher. So we could have a competition here and we can have enough seating at the school, at this gymnasium. And when we need student assembly area, this is going to be your student assembly area. You could put all the students in this gym and you can have them all in one room if you need it. And we also brought in natural light from outside, and those windows are up higher, and that cuts down on energy expenses. And this right here is the cafeteria / your multi-purpose / your performance room. This has got a stage. It's just pretty similar to East, but it's a better layout for that purpose. And we have bleachers in this location. So after lunch, all the tables can go away to their storage and you could pull the bleachers in, and then you could have school concerts. You could have other schools come here, so we don't have to pay for other events. We can have district-wide events hosted here. We've designed this such that we could secure this area and not let people in other areas, and only to the needed areas, so we can operationally maintain this area better and keep it still secure.
Mhm.
And that is a typical classroom. Here, ignore all the furniture layouts. It's just nothing. It's a general layout, but this is not exactly what our classrooms are going to look like. We are still figuring that part of it out. But this gives you an idea of the casework, which is all along the wall, the cubbies, cupboards, that layout. And also you can see here we have a operable wall in between 2 classrooms, very similar to East concept. But then, you could have team teaching, combined teaching between 2 classrooms, and gives that flexibility for when you need it. If not, you could close that door and you could still have separate classrooms the way you want it. And that right there is a bird's eye view of the site in the early stages. I put this picture up so you could see the different kinds of soil that we're dealing with in that site. Look closer to the south. In this case, closer to that existing gymnasium. See how dark that soil is. So we're bringing in soil from outside, and we're taking this and we're mixing this. We have a geotech there full time. They're testing, they're approving, and things are happening as we speak at that site. But that is the type of soil we're dealing with at that site at this point. This picture, now you could look at that same area by the gymnasium. You could see the different color and engineered compacted soil before we start the footprint, but just wanted to give you that also. Next one is what we're dealing with. This was a picture that was taken by somebody and put it on Facebook, and they had a drone. Looks like they flew the drone from outside, but this is pretty much tells you what we're dealing with at the site now. We have lost about 14 days at this point of valuable construction time because of this. We want moisture, don't get me wrong, but given what's happening at the site, there's a 6-foot storm sewer that runs around the site, and we have a 30-inch storm sewer between this community center and the gymnasium that runs into our property. We're working with the city to reroute that, but that is literally what we're dealing with. And the next picture is a close-up picture of that area. That concrete right there is a stair structure for one of the wings. And we pretty much have water up to this area, and we're constantly dewatering it. And because of this, what we have to do is before we backfill the soil, we're going to have to dig down another foot or two and test the compaction on that, and then build it back up again. So the geotech's there all the time, and the structural engineer and I meet again tomorrow morning, and it's just constant time trying to battle with what's happening with Mother Nature, and also price increases and all of that. That's the footprint where the gymnasium is supposed to go. Now it's a pool. But that is the quick update on South so far. The team is doing a great job. I mean, it's not one man's job or two companies' job. It starts with the general contractor, the subcontractor, the supplier, and the city to a point, and other players, code enforcement. Everybody's doing their best. Everybody knows the timelines, so everything is turned around faster, except one issue that I'm meeting with the city tomorrow on. Typically, I guess we have a great working relationship with the city engineers and all code officials, whether it is city engineering office or the fire department or the PD. In this case, they're also dealing with some turnovers in their office also. So we have given a set of drawings to them back in 2015, 16, and also in 2021 for review. And early 2022, after even we selected the contractors, they had the documents for the building permit. And one part of the puzzle, that is rerouting that storm sewer that is running between the community center and the gymnasium, needs to be rerouted. But then they discovered that they needed that pipe to be upsized. And they said they will pay for the difference after some negotiations, which is all fine. But then, that pipe is causing us delays in our project. It's weeks, 2 weeks, week and a half kind of thing now. So we're not getting prompt response on the dollar amount perspective, but we have a meeting scheduled with them tomorrow to be able to go and talk about that. We cannot stall the project to upsize a pipe. And here's the practical problem. They figured out they need that pipe to be twice as large. We had a 30-inch in the design or 36-inch in the design, and they needed it to be 42-inch, part of their calculations now. And that 42, they wanted it to be an elongated pipe. So it's not your normal round pipe, that elongated pipe, which creates about 4 to 6 weeks of delay in pretty much making that pipe. And then the pipe is supposed to be dying into a inlet structure, and that structure is too small for this big of a pipe to go into. So it's just compounding issues. And then we dug open another inlet, city's inlet, which is just deteriorated, structurally deteriorated. So we took videos and sent it to the city. But when it comes to money, nobody's making the fast decisions that they need to be made. And we cannot deal with more delays on these projects. So that is why we're on constant meetings with them, but they are doing their best. I can tell you that. If it comes to us going to city council, we will go to the city council and ask for money and ask for proper support on this. But so far, we're swimming through the water, even though it's murky. Not breathing on it, but yeah. So that's that. And Fifth Street property, as you know, this property was surplused before. And we did an appraisal on this property and it came in at an X dollar. And we talked to the developers in town, and currently the property is zoned low residential. Please don't quote me on this. It is not valued to its potential. Let's put it that way. So we wanted to figure out how to subdivide or how to create a map so that the developers can understand this property is commercial for the most part. So it can be valued higher. And then for multifamily, you know, so that picture that you see, the leftmost one, all the orangey color or whatever color that is, I'm kind of colorblind here from, but that is all commercial. That's all more hospital oriented commercial type structures. And then behind that light yellowish color, that's all apartments. So now we can reappraise that property based on this and then go, okay, now the frontage is worth this much per square foot. And then the back portion is worth this much per square foot. So that's why we did that. Look on the east side of the Fifth Street, further to the southeast side, we have some area that we own there too, and that could be also subdivided at some point and then turned back. You know, we can get some revenue off of that area, but let's not focus on that. I just wanted you to see that we didn't leave anything. We just looked at everything from a holistic standpoint and see how much revenue we can bring from that site. And the right picture is kind of a close-up of the area that I talked to you before. We have to do some rerouting, but we're hoping that we could come up with a per square foot cost like this and then market it this way. So somebody that sees it from out of town at least can say, okay, we could do this. This was laid out for this. So then yes, this property is worth this much, not $200,000 or $300,000. That's kind of the idea. The next steps are we have contacted the appraisal company again to reappraise it, and we will have some values on that, and then we'll bring that to you. And based on the direction you give us, then we could either put it on the market or go for an auction or whatever the state procedure is. We'll follow that from that point on. You know, yeah. Affordable housing, certainly, of course, we're not in the building business at this point, but if as long as we can market this property and get the best value out of this property and not, you know, just give it to somebody.
So I know there's been some discussion among the board about looking for land or space for career and tech ed building. We've had quite a bit of conversation as a facilities committee, and then Kumar Coy and I have as well. It really, right at this point, is cart before the horse. Our academy model is so in its infancy, and things are changing. Especially around the staffing perspective. And so that really needs the priority right now, is to make sure that we can partner with School of Mines, WDT, through hiring to keep the next level of implementation going. And then in a couple of years, see where things are at and see if there's need for a career and tech ed building at that time. I think there's a lot of moving parts that perhaps the board hadn't considered. So the model was designed to be in each comprehensive high school. So if you've got a central location, that means you're going to have a lot of students traveling to and from their comprehensive high schools to the career and tech ed building. It's not that it might not be needed sometime in the future, but we just feel, at least from the facilities committee and then also from our internal discussions, that right now is not the time to be looking at it, because we really need to understand, will the model evolve in the next year or two before those kinds of decisions are made? I think also Coy can maybe share a little bit more on this front, but you know, we've used capital outlay in a couple different areas this school year to address other things, purchasing the Shepherd Hills property, before that, the property out at Sheridan and Dunsmore. And so I think there's also some concerns right now about trying to tap into that further, but I will stop there and see first if maybe Coy has anything to add to the discussion, Kumar, and then certainly Bishop Carr or Clay either. Assuming you're there, Coy, were you able to get in?
I am here. I'm sorry. I was trying to find the raise hand function, so I apologize. Yeah, you know, I think this situation, like many that you'll hear about tonight, is very challenging, very difficult. Dr. Simon, of course, being part of the team that brought this project on board, has a deeper understanding in terms of the model, and some of those things. I would expand just very quickly on your point in regard to capital outlay. And, you know, as we had discussed, when talking about the South Middle School financing, to the point that we have leveraged capital outlay in terms of debt service, we are now in that range where it becomes more and more difficult to continue to leverage capital outlay in terms of certificate issuance until we have other debt starting to drop off. And again, if you flash back to the debt timeline that we discussed, we start to see it decrease in the 2027 timeframe, steadily down to about that 2029 timeframe, at which all of it drops off except for the newest certificate that we issued for South Middle School. And keep in mind that debt service is about $1 million a year. So at that point, you have a pretty significant amount of resources that open up. Of course, the other option always is looking at cash outlay, which I think needs more discussion, and especially if there at some point is the idea of going out and looking at a purchase, because capital outlay reserve is very different than other funds. And obviously you always want to be building and looking at what's coming down the road and what your cash needs will be for that, on top of sort of an emergency reserve. So it is a real precarious position in terms of that situation right now. Of course, not only with this subject, but with many subjects. So I'll stop there.
Do you have any additional thoughts, Kumar?
Just from the facility standpoint and the programming standpoint, you know, I'll be blunt. If you tell me what exactly we need, and I can come up with a solution for it. And at this point, to me, it feels like we don't know how, and the programming, the way we are going to be teaching the kids. So I'm not even sure if I could give you, it's like you telling me, go build a 600 kid school and we'll come back to you. But what all the kids need? I mean, do we need a science lab? Do we need a theater? Do we need a tech ed room? Do we need fine arts? Without those details, I'm not going to be able to sit here and recommend that this is a good idea or a bad idea. I don't think anybody, you know, from the facilities committee, that my takeaway is everybody wants to have a good building for all the kids, but maybe we're too early on this. I just don't know what the needs are in that area to be able to give you, yes, you need this building, or yes, let's build this building at this many square footage. that's where I'm at this point.
Anything more on this topic? Questions, or Clay or Bishop? Do either of you have any comments?
I just agree. Coy and Kumar summarized it pretty well from the discussions that we had, that, we need first know exactly what we need. So if we do look at a building, does it meet those needs? If we don't know what the needs are, we can't say that. And then, from the financing side standpoint, I just, based on what Coy showed me in the budget and where we're going, it would be, I don't think we could afford it right now anyway. So, or of the properties, I guess, that I was thrown, or what they told us, like a $9 to $10 million price range. So.
And I ditto everything that's been said. Well done, everyone.
Any questions before we move on? I know we're trying to keep on time here, so. All right, Kumar.
Yes, deferred maintenance plan. This is one of the things that I always think about every day. And there's not one day that goes by without thinking about deferred maintenance plan. When I came into the district, and it has been almost 7 or 8 years now, 7. That it's a spreadsheet. It's a glorified spreadsheet. Is what it is at this point. The list that we have. It is the list that the custodians want. It's the list the maintenance want. It's the list the teachers want. It's the list the principals want. It's the list that we need to do. And we did some studies. We have been proactive on some things. When we got that hailstorm, hail claim back in 2014, we fixed about 80% of the roofs in the district, and we have forecast a study. So there's the things that we have done with me and Kathy now. We are the two in the department. We have very limited manpower and time on this, and we have done this, but the deferred maintenance plan changes every year, right? Based on the priorities, based on the program needs. So what I really like to see is having a solid deferred maintenance plan for the district, and also a solid way to pay for it. Because every year, I won't know what the dollar amount we can spend on the deferred maintenance plan until the legislative session or the negotiations. I mean, that's part of the practical problem we have in a district like this.
There's your mic on. Amy just texted and said she can't.
Oh, so I have to repeat the whole thing. Sorry, Amy, I will try to
You
say
don't
this
have
quick.
to repeat.
What's that?
You don't have to repeat. Just keep going forward.
Okay, sorry. So just a little bit, where we are is the spreadsheet that we track, that we talk to people. I guess I should have brought that. It's in my table, but every year the priorities change, like I said, based on the program that we want to do, or based on safety, based on security, or is this something we have to do next year to be able to keep school open? There are some preventative maintenance things we have done over the last few years, which has helped at the district in moving in the right direction, but it's just not enough. We need to have some solid plan, and then solid plan to pay for it, and then stick with it to be able to get it at rest, whether it's a mechanical system that needs to be changed, or it's a roof system that needs to be changed, or it's a routine schedule of painting every 5 years. I mean, or carpet changes or light fixtures change. All of those have to be laid out, and those priorities should not change unless if something burns down or something catastrophically happens that changes our priorities.
So Kumar, what would you need to move forward? Is this something that you plan to take to one of the first facilities committees meeting next fall to start to work on this so that you can bring something to the board?
Yes, ma'am. Certainly would like to have input from the board on which direction we want to move forward. Yes, well, we can look at this piece of the pie, and let's see how we want to divvy this up. It's challenging. It's very challenging, because there are years we have to do computer refresh, or we have to buy buses, or we have to buy books. It's not a simple, easy answer for how much money we can spend on this. We could look at a bond for that, we could look at a lot of different ways to address some of those deferred maintenance needs. But I will be able to share the spreadsheet that we have thus far, and maybe even refine that a little bit more, and come to you with, here are the needs. What are your thoughts on how are we going to pay for this? And maybe we have to have a 10-year deferred maintenance plan and a 5-year deferred maintenance plan, and not just have this whole, $280 million worth of need. But realistically, what do we need from now until, 2034 or 32, whatever that is? And, when it comes to safety and security, it is a topic that comes up when there's an event across the nation. Unfortunately, yes, we have our PD, we have the resources that we have, they're looking at, they're giving us recommendations, we're trying to follow the recommendations. But, I mean, what is it, right? I could give you a simple example. The keys that I have, these are the keys that'll get me into any building in any district, right? Those are expensive. If I or somebody that has this key loses the key, we now spend a lot of time and effort in rekeying the doors in every single building. And that's real time that is being spent on a constant basis, whether it's a building-wide master or a district master or 2 or 3 building master. How important is that to keep the school from operating? It's not that important, but it is money we are spending every day. Is it safe? The way it is, we can manage it, but we need to work towards betterment of that system. And then I can give you an example of fire sprinkler. We don't have sprinklers in the building where we should have sprinklers. In turn, if we have the fire sprinklers, maybe we'll get a better insurance rates. And at the same time, we can preserve the structure the way it should be preserved. Yes, when it was built back in the 1960s and 70s, it was not part of the code requirement. So it's fine. But what is the risk we are taking at this point? Given the prices the way they are, if something were to happen, if we burn a portion of the building down or something, then how are we going to come up with the money? I mean, we're talking about maxing out everything that we have, but how do we better manage it so that we don't go to that situation and then go, now I need $5 million to be able to fix this. You remember the roof that went like this at Dakota Middle School? Some of you that have been, you might remember, Kate, and that means you're stopping everything you're doing and directing resources to take care of that building. So how do we not do that? How do we address it before it comes to that point? Is my only small point, but with the bigger picture in mind.
Kumar, was that a question at your last statement? Was that a question or a statement?
It's kind of both, and I really need, I will bring the documents I have with you. I'll share that with you. But at the same time, how do we address this moving forward? Are we as a board, are you as a board are going to say, we're going to dedicate this much every year for the 5 years to be able to address these specific projects?
And I guess my point of saying that is because what I would need your expertise to inform me of what's needed, what the priority of need. I would know from building to building what's more important. So I agree with the concept, that we should be proactive in maintenance. We all are. In fact, I just had an air conditioner people come, and every month I put in a new filter in my furnace to be preventative before it clogs up. And so I agree with the concept, but for me, I would need you to tell me this is what's a priority, this is what we need to look at, and then can we take the top 3, the top 5 based on budget? So that's kind of what I would need.
Thank you. And that is what we're doing now, honestly, and bringing that recommendation to you. My problem is the priorities. Let's say if I have 1 through 10 as my priority, and come budget time, we figure out we have 5 million that we could put up against this. And then what happens is the priority 1 from 10 now is changed from, so I have to leave out the 10, 9, then maybe even parts of 8 to be able to get it done. Or sometimes it is, some years are like, we can only get 1 through 3 done and not the rest. So then what happens next year is if we don't maintain it now, then it's just, there's more wear and tear on those systems. So I would like for you to think about how do we say this is the piece of the pie as capital outlay grows with valuations that are happening and the buildings that are building in the community. It's not the dollar amount, maybe it's a percentage. So the capital outlay buildings dollar amount can grow with the capital outlay growth. And that's one piece of it, certainly.
Koi is waiting.
Yeah,
in the
I was
queue.
just seeing that. He found the hand. Go ahead, Goy.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. So I'm going to sound probably an awful lot like a broken record tonight, so I apologize. I think in this particular situation, Kumar makes some really excellent points, and in theory, I agree with everything he said. I think one of the things he touched on that is really important that maybe could be expanded on just a bit is the idea that capital outlay is a very broad category of spending for the district. You have everything from curriculum, technology, busing, obviously deferred maintenance, construction, all these different things. And there's really, really, really fierce competition for those dollars within our system every single year. In a lot of ways, capital outlay follows a very cyclical kind of wave of spending where, for example, you have a refresh of computers. And so every 4 years, there's a wave in terms of technology, or 3 years or 5 years or whatever it might be. Similar to busing, there are some years where you have more buses to replace than others. And so I agree with Kumar in the sense that I think this is a big picture conversation of what capital outlay looks like as the district moves forward. Because obviously, if there are resources to be freed up for preventative maintenance, then that means there are less resources to go around to other causes for spending. And so I do think that is definitely a big picture directive conversation of what and how capital outlay looks as we move into the future from a spending standpoint.
And that really is a great segue, Koi, into the last topic, which is just looking at the long-term facilities plan. Right now, if we look at our situation, there's a lot of deferred maintenance that needs to happen. And that was the piece that Kumar was just addressing. That takes resources. We know already our capital outlay is used for a number of different things, and they're all as it's intended. That's where curriculum purchases come, technology purchases, buses, you've heard. We've got, issues that we're still paying down the debt on, or certificates rather, and then money that is appropriated every year to deferred maintenance. And if we look at the bond campaign 2 years ago, fast forward to today, and this is total project costs, but really everything that we said during that bond campaign has come true. We said prices are going to continue to rise with construction. Well, if you look at South, complete project then was estimated at $45 million. Today it's $68 million, just 2 years later. We talked about interest rates are going to rise, and that is also happening. We talked about the fact that South Robbinsdale and Canyon Lake are just one major issue from having to be closed. And look where we're at with Canyon Lake. We've had 2 significant issues since then, and now we're closing the main building and moving kids. Kumar provided an update not long ago to say that the movement that's happening at Robbinsdale is extremely significant from an engineering perspective. And so, not to belabor it, but the district is going to be in sort of a critical position in the very near future. if the growth continues like it is out on the eastern side of our district, I anticipate that Shepherd Hills school site is going to need to be built on too rather quickly, because the valley schools are already pretty full. And so a couple of things for you to begin thinking about as the board, convenes once the school year gets started again. One of the discussions that we've had is, do we need to have some sort of comprehensive facility study? And if not that, at least perhaps a demographic study done, just because so much has changed in the few years that I've been here in terms of growth and expansion and expected expansion of the community. So that's one thing for you to put on your radar. Barring a school bond, there really are no other options for raising revenue for facilities. And I think, especially with inflation, who knows what will happen in the future, but I just think that would be really challenging right now to try to think about going out with. One thing that I have been exploring a little bit, I've had some discussions with the mayor. I've had discussions with facilities committee. I think I may have even approached it in board leadership. There are some communities and states that within communities, there is an additional hotel fee that is added to hotel bills, and it's specifically earmarked for the local school district's facilities, period. No other uses for that funding source. Now, obviously, there's a lot of pre-work that would need to be done, because this would, at the end of the day, would need to be a legislative decision, right? But it is something that would benefit the entire state. And I do think local taxpayers would likely be supportive of it, because it takes that tax burden off of them to try to help out a local school district's facility needs. But I would really encourage Kumar and Coy very soon to sit down with Elevate, to sit down with the local hotel group that meets, and perhaps the board members on the facilities committee could join those discussions, and probably start having some discussions with our local legislators to see if this would be something that they would entertain bringing a bill forward on. But I don't know what its chances are, but there needs to have some action accomplished, and this seems like it's a viable option, at least to begin having conversation on. And so again, as you think of those next steps, and as the facilities committee convenes, probably starting in August or September, I think that would be a good place to start focusing your energy. So with that, I will see if Coy, Kumar, Bishop Carr, or Clay have any final thoughts, and we'll see if there's any final discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Simon. You have touched on everything that I had in my mind also. And one other thing I would add, like you started with, this is a good segue from deferred maintenance to this. This long-term plan is really critical for the deferred maintenance plan. If we know we're going to be closing certain schools because of parts of consolidation or condition the way it is, then we shouldn't be directing resources from the deferred maintenance for those schools. We can do the bare minimum. So it's all intertied with each other. So that's why that is kind of critical. And at the same time, we have to come up with alternate revenue source for the capital outlay funds, or to substitute that, or to add on to it. The hotel tax certainly takes it from tourists. I mean, for the most part, right? Hey, sorry, but you come here and you have to pay for it. But if we can get to that point, it is certainly going to help the school district. And I would say one more thing. I am not against the developers in town. I'm not against growth, so please don't take it from that perspective. But I am against the TIFs, the way they are happening now. Whenever there's a development happens, whenever there's a TIF that is passed in the community, that means we don't get anything. Everybody else that is involved gets the benefits, streets, city, everybody gets the dollars that they need. So we need to work with the city and if it is the city, if it is whoever it is, to be able to add us to be part of that. We need our dollars to be able to sustain, because you see the millions and millions of building permits that are being issued, and a lot of them are part of the TIFs. So which means we don't get to collect taxes, tax benefits for the 15 or 20 years or however long the TIFs are. So I'm really against that process. And that is also another source we can increase the revenue as long as the formula doesn't change from the state level. And there's a misconception out there that I'm paying this, let's say if I'm paying $1,000 in school taxes for part of my real estate taxes, that 1,000 is staying in the community. Well, it's not. We don't get to keep that $1,000 that is being spent. So given all of that, we collectively have to figure out some alternate methods to reach that goal and to help the kids of Rapid City area schools.
So I guess the first thing you would have to do is find out how to change that to get that money from the TIFs. Is that city? Is it? And then add that to the conversation with Elevate, if that's where, and others that you bring to that table. I do see Coy has his hand up. Go ahead, Coy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And certainly I could defer to, is there any other members of the facility committee or anyone else that wants to comment? I would say this, well, first of all, piggybacking a bit off of what Kumar said in regard to the hotel fee, I think it's an excellent idea. I think it's a good way to shift the responsibility of that additional income to a source outside of our local taxpayers. Just as an FYI, and Dr. Simon, I haven't even got a chance to tell you this yet, but I did, as we discussed with President Thomas, I did reach out to Elevate and ask them if they could find us any examples of a city or a state in which this is happening, that we could look at their model and at least get some idea of what that looks like, what their process was for pushing it through their, whatever their layers were to get it approved. So I think that'll be really helpful when we start to get some info back from that too, and Kumar and I can continue those conversations. I think in terms of the overall facility need, Dr. Simon did a really nice job of recapping that, and Kumar talking about it also. I think this is probably the most difficult part of this conversation from the financial perspective, and a lot of the reasons that we've discussed that some of this is so complex and difficult apply obviously to that situation as well. Having the internal resources to be able to issue debt to address facilities is a major component of how we approach those things. I do think that it will be very difficult for the district moving into the future to ever address the facilities in the way that it needs to without at some point going back out for the bond. I do believe that the challenging part of that right now is that we have to be sensitive to what's happening in our community and in the world around us. And coming off of a pandemic, coming off of skyrocketing property tax, major inflation, really on the tipping point of a recession, I think we need to be very sensitive and very strategic about how we approach that as we move into the future. I think the idea of having a needs analysis and a demographic study done is also very important, because obviously if you look at the MGT study, where it said the growth was happening and how the growth was happening changed very drastically in a short amount of time. And the community continues to change. And I believe it's really important for us to understand what we think our best guess is in terms of enrollment and where our community is growing and where we need to start addressing these needs and then prioritizing and attacking those in that priority is really, really important. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Any questions? More thoughts? Go ahead, Clay.
Yeah, say being on facility committee, and Kumar and Coy did a good job of putting that, but yeah, this is gonna be a major challenge for us for the next number of years. And, going back to the bond, had that passed, probably in a better place. Nothing we can do about that now, but just coming up with this plan, I think a good start, Kumar putting together the needs and then, mirror, putting that with, the long-term plan we have to do and just start chipping away at it. But at some point, it's going to take something drastic more than the resources we have available now, like a bond or, this tax idea. I'm extremely supportive of, how do we, had record tourism over the last couple of years, how do we leverage that? Going against, we're, working out some kind of agreement, hopefully, to reduce the TIFs or at least getting some of that revenue, because we get stuck with all of the, the cost on that on our end. And, it's just, unfortunately a position we're in, I don't think very sustainable for us. So something the facilities committee gonna have and the whole board have to wrestle with here very quickly.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, Dr. Simon.
Just very quickly, one thing that I should have noted under next steps is the other thing that the board and facilities committee may want to think about is reconvening at some point the facilities task force, just to kind of look at, where we are 4 years later, and does anything need to be updated, especially since we see where now the community growth is happening. So just something to consider.
Madam President, I have a
Yes.
couple more points.
Go ahead.
Just ran a quick math. I believe there are 3,000 plus rooms in our town, hotel rooms, based on Visit Rapid City's page, 3,000 or 4,000. So I did 3,000 rooms at 50% occupancy. Let's say only 1,500 rooms are occupied in our city of Rapid City a night, okay? At $5 per room is the extra fee that they would pay for school. So if I rent a room for $100, I'd pay $105. That $5 would go to school district, right? That's kind of what we're talking about. At that $5, it's $7,500 a month. Oh no, per day. So at $5, 1,500 rooms, $7,500 per day. And at 20-day occupancy, that's $150,000, assuming the rooms are only rented for 4 months of the year, and that's $600,000. New money could come to the district. That's by one room, a person paying $5 more per room, per night. That's at 50% occupancy, and that's only for 4 months of the year. So what that means is $600,000 per year, or $1 million, whatever that number is, it turns out to be, that equals, if we borrow on that we could borrow, 25 or 30 or something, and then use that $1 million to pay for that debt, just like how you would pay for your mortgage. So we could build a school with it at that $5 a night number, just for thinking purposes. And then the second thing is that we want to talk to Douglas School District and see how we want to partner with Douglas. And if that means we have to go to DC, some of you board members and legislatives, we go to DC because of what's coming, part of the B21 program. If they get 300, what if we can get 100? Because we're going to serve the community also. We're going to serve the B21 program one way or the other. So we shouldn't let the whole thing, we shouldn't just be quiet, I guess. Those are the two things, and I'll shut up.
Oh. No, those were good points. Is that it? Yeah, thank you. That's really good, important information to have. All right. We will be moving on to executive session then. Thank you for the presentation and coming. I don't think so. So we're going into executive session then for SDCL 1-25-2.1. I need a motion.
So moved.
Clay and Deb. Yes.
Yes.
Amy?
Yes, but you know that I'm not joining you. I guess it doesn't matter how many board members you have in the executive session.
We will still be okay though. Amy.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Troy?
Thanks, Annie.
Yes.
All right.